Atlantis hidden from humanity. Was this purposely done? The power of names and monstrous magic. Knowledge about Atlantis hides a terrible secret, otherwise why does humanity know so little about this today? And yet the existence of Atlantis has been indisputably proven by many researchers. There's information about it in ancient sources, but often in a veiled form. Thanks to ancient Greek Plato, we know that the inhabitants of the mysterious civilization called their continent Atlantis. The history of Atlantis and all the legends about it were transmitted, as is known by Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. Plato, as a child, heard about this from his great-grandfather Critias, a 90-year-old elder who in his youth heard about this from Solon, another ancient Greek, one of the 7 wise men of Greece, a friend of his father Dropides, and we believe that it's difficult to find a more reliable source than this. The reason for the concealment by the ancient knowledge of even the very existence of Atlantis was in that irresistible horror that was inspired by the very memory of the last Atlanteans and the monstrous power of black magic, which was owned and freely used by the morally degraded remnants of the once bright and beautiful fourth race. Now, I do have a playlist of the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean, or Hermes Trismegistus, and he does, it's a lot of information there having to do with their philosophy of life, their advanced technology, their interstellar flights, also interdimensional travel. They switched from one dimension to another. But he also explains that they use a lot of their knowledge, which they were not supposed to use, according to the divine source, God. They were told not to use certain things, and they did. And he says it was just a matter of time before God put an end to them because of their misuse of their technology and black magic and the harm they did to humans. And he was right. Now, he says before the devastation of Atlantis, a lot of Atlanteans went to other areas. He himself had gone to Egypt, and he credits himself with building the Giza pyramids. A lot of other Atlanteans had gone to other areas of the world, and the first thing they did was build pyramids. And he claims that one of his spacecraft is hidden under a sphinx in a pyramid complex. Now, I can't remember if that was Giza or some other pyramid complex in Egypt. So he was right. The divine God did put an end to Atlantis. Now, going back to this again was known to the priests of Egypt and Plato himself, and only a solemn oath of secrecy, which extended even to the mysteries of the Neoplatonists, prevented the disclosure of the whole truth. And indeed, the knowledge of the last island of Atlantis was so secret, thanks to those superhuman powers possessed by its inhabitants, the last direct descendants of the gods or divine kings, as it was thought, that the disclosure of its location and existence was punishable by death. Theopompus asserts the same thing in his work Meropis, when he speaks of the Phoenicians as the only navigators in the waters that washed the western coast of Africa, and who did this with such secrecy that very often they themselves sank their own ships in order to destroy all traces of them for overly curious strangers. If the Diocletian persecution of the early Christians had not burned down the esoteric writings of the Egyptians in 296 AD, along with their books on alchemy, just as Caesar burned 700,000 scrolls in Alexandria of Egypt, and Leo the Isaurian 300,000 in Constantinople, which is today's Istanbul, in the 8th century AD, and the Mohammedans who destroyed everything on which they could find, the world could now know much more about Atlantis, for alchemy had Atlantis as its home during the Fourth Race and was revived again only in Egypt. The horror of the corrupting influence of morally fallen people, reinforced by the techniques of black magic, forced the ancient peoples of the fifth race who lived in different countries not only to hide the fact of the existence of the dead continent and its population, but even to avoid mentioning the real names and surnames, inventing their own or translating the meaning of ancient names into their languages. Atlantis is often mentioned under a different name, unknown to our interpreters. The power of names is great, and this has been known since the time when the first people were instructed by divine teachers. And since Solon studied this, he could have translated the name of the Atlanteans into names invented by himself. In connection with the mainland of Atlantis, it's advisable to bear in mind that the narratives that have come down to us from ancient Greek writers contain mixed statements, some referring to the large continent, others to the last small island of Poseidonis. It has become customary to accept them all as referring only to the latter, but the incorrectness of this becomes obvious due to the inconsistency of various statements about the size of Atlantis. Quote, magic has lost its name and along with it the right to its recognition, but it is used daily, and her offspring are magnetic influence, the power of eloquence, and so on, end quote. The real truth is that magic is still in full swing among mankind, no matter how blind mankind may remain to its silent presence and influence on its members. In regard to its daily and hourly beneficial harmful effects, the world is full of such unconscious sorcerers, in politics as well as everyday life, in the church as well as the citadel of free thought. This is Uncollected Spark by Solask. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Now, unfortunately, black magic, if you don't protect yourself, can get to you and take over you and ruin certain aspects in your life irreparably if you don't take care of yourself. One way that you can avert and keep yourself protected against black magic is, of course, being in the sacraments of the Christian Church, being the Holy Confession and Holy Communion, the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. And that is what protects you. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.